Simply incredible.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Simply incredible. Very rarely do the stars just align in sports. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. And on today's show, we are breaking down Syracuse's 42-38 stunner over Miami. Folks, heading into this season, did you think this was really going to happen? I know we all had hope. We all had hope. A brand new head coach. A head coach who had been doing things off the field in terms of recruiting that Syracuse football hadn't seen in over 2 decades. And we broke it down throughout the offseason that Fran Brown is bringing in a ton of talent. And he kept a lot of talent. He kept guys like LeQuint Allen. He kept guys like Oronde Gadsden, Trebor Pena, who broke out this season. And he brought in excellent transfers. Jackson Meeks, Fidel Diggs. We're going to talk about Devin Grant, who made the play of his life in this game. And it was the moment where I actually felt, is Syracuse actually going to win this game? Are they really going to do it? But he also brought in the perfect quarterback. Folks, most of you guys who are tuning in are probably Syracuse fans. And if you're not a Syracuse fan, maybe you're a Miami fan and you're trying to understand what went wrong. I'll give you a little history lesson. It's going to be brief. We haven't been very good for a long time. We haven't had this type of quarterback play in a long time. We've had some. Eric Dungy had a few years. Garrett Schrader actually wasn't a terrible guy. I thought he was actually pretty good at times. But very rarely do the stars just align, where you get the perfect first-year head coach, and he brings in the perfect transfer quarterback in Kyle McCord, who played an outstanding game. And I feel like we say it every week that he played the best game of his life. We're going to break it all down here on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. I'm Jackson Holzer. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It's hard to talk about this game. I can give you guys some of the footnotes of it. Syracuse football finishes the year at 9-3. Fran Brown might be the most successful first-year head coach in the history of Syracuse. And Syracuse gets its first top 10 win since Clemson in 2017. Remember that? That was a big-time win. Dino Babers' second season gets a big win over Clemson at home when Clemson, I believe, was the number 2 team in the country at that point. You want to know what the difference between this game is and what that game was? Syracuse football wasn't good in 2017. I believe they finished 4-8. Now, they had a great year in 2018. They built off that momentum eventually. But this is different, and it feels different. This is a program-changing win. I saw someone reply to one of my tweets, Fran Brown might have to turn down too many recruits with the amount of people that might want to come here. And why wouldn't you want to come to Syracuse now? This is a winning football program. This was the game. Granted, Syracuse technically didn't really have much on the line. I don't think they're going to make a college football playoff. I don't think they're going to go from unranked to in the top 12 in one game. But they still had a lot to play for. They had to play for the program. And it wasn't looking very good. It was 21-0. Remember that? It's 21-0 early in the second quarter. The Syracuse defense was getting carved up. And Miami, to their credit, in the beginning of the game, got a few stops. Did the refs help? Yes. Trebor Pena got a touchdown that was called back. It shouldn't have been called back. But you know what? Syracuse They got stopped on 4th down, and there's nothing against the rules that says you can't score for the remainder of the drive. And to Miami's credit, they took advantage of the bad call, and they stopped Syracuse. And they went up 21-0. And slowly but surely, they chipped away. This team didn't quit. Now, we've seen Syracuse fall behind in games. They fell behind against Pitt, and it was a disaster. They fell behind against Virginia Tech, 21-3 in the second half, and they came back. You're down 21 points to Miami. I didn't think they were coming back. I was just hoping they would be competitive. Boy, was I wrong. And by halftime, it's 21-14. And Syracuse, to start the second half, they come out firing. They start going deep, and they start stretching the Miami defense to reopen the short passing game. Trebor Pena all of a sudden turned into Randy Moss for a drive. Now, Trebor Pena has had a terrific year, a terrific breakout season, but we all know what he is, right? He's a great slot guy. He's going to get open. Turning into Randy Moss, I mean, he's jumping over Miami defensive backs, just making outstanding plays. And Syracuse ties the game. But Miami, a great team with a great quarterback, they retake the lead. And Syracuse, with a great quarterback and a great team, they respond. It's 28-28. And then Syracuse does something on defense terrific. They get legitimate pressure on Cam Ward, and they back him up. Miami nearly gets their punt blocked in the third quarter. But the Miami punter made a great play, but still, Syracuse gets it at midfield. It looks like they're going to march to take the first lead of the game. It's 28-28, but wait. The bad play finally happens, right? It finally happened. Yassine Willis, the true freshman running back, he's fighting for the first down, and the ball gets stripped out. It was a great play by Miami. Willis has to hold on to the ball in that situation. He doesn't. And you're thinking, man, Syracuse had a chance. They had to win the turnover battle. Now it's 1-0 Miami. It's so hard to stop their offense. They're carving us up. Even when they're getting stops, it feels like a miracle, which it kind of did. And they're driving down the field once again. They're facing a 3rd and 4 in the third quarter. It's a screen pass to Xavier Restrepo. He's got the first down. But wait, the ball pops free. Devin Grant makes the play of his life. In a tie game in the third quarter, he made the play of his life. He strips the ball from Xavier Restrepo. He picks up the fumble, and he takes it all the way back to the house, and he gives Syracuse a 35-28 lead. The play of his life. I say that because I really don't think he's ever made a bigger play than that. And Devin Grant is obviously a great athlete. You got to be really good to be a Division I football player, guys. I don't care what star recruit you were. I don't care what level you're necessarily playing at. You got to be pretty damn good. He made the best play he's ever made and might ever make in his entire career. He gives Syracuse the lead on a defensive touchdown. And that was the moment, in my opinion, where I felt that Syracuse actually is going to win this game. And I know Miami tied the game at 35 early in the fourth quarter. I know. But Kyle McCord in this offense, after, I guess if you want to call it a slow start, it wasn't really a slow start. They go down the field. LeQuint Allen plunges in. Touchdown Syracuse. They lead 42-35 with 9:16 to go in the game. And then here comes Miami. I'm giving you guys a recap of this. Miami is first and goal at the 8-yard line of Syracuse. There's about 5-ish minutes left in the game. Syracuse almost picks off Cam Ward here. Very nearly did. The ball was tipped. It's like ping pong out here. Ball falls to the turf, to a lot of Miami fans' relief. But Jacoby George just makes a bonehead decision. he commits an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It might have cost Miami this game. He headbutted, I believe, Marlo Wax. That's a penalty 100 times out of 100. You can't do that. He headbutts the guy. I'm sorry. It's the right call. It makes it 2nd and goal Miami at the 23. And eventually, the Orange step up on defense. They do just enough. They hold them at the 9-yard line. Miami kicks a field goal, and now you're just a few first downs away. And something that this team really hasn't been able to consistently do all season long, which is run the football, open up holes on the offensive line for LeQuint Allen to just drive right through. They actually do it. They got a little help from an offsides on Miami. I'll give you that, but they actually do it. LeQuint's getting a lot of yards, but eventually it's like 2nd and 11 or whatever. And Miami can still get a miracle on a punt. And Jeff Nixon has one more. Jeff Nixon, guys, is the Syracuse offensive coordinator. He's got one more gutsy play in him. Just one more. He calls a jet sweep to Trebor Pena to the left side. Miami's not expecting it. I wasn't expecting it. I was watching this game with my dad. He wasn't expecting it. He didn't like it at the line of scrimmage. But you can just tell as soon as he turned that corner, the game was over. And lo and behold, the game was over. And Syracuse comes back from 21 down to win. Just an incredible game. Incredible way to finish the year. An incredible team. They came together. And look, I know there's going to be a bowl game. And we'll have time to talk about the bowl game and everything. But for all intents and purposes, this was the final time that this group of players and coaches will all be together. Because by the time there's a bowl game, the transfer portal is a real thing. It's going to open. The NFL is a real thing. And players on Syracuse, because they're a good team, they're going to have some NFL guys. Some guys are out of eligibility, a guy like Kyle McCord. And we're going to talk about him more in depth in the next segment here. This was it. And what a treat that they gave us this afternoon. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. That was a general recap of the game. Coming up, we're going to talk about Kyle McCord, of course. We're going to review really his season in general. And then we're going to talk about how this game is a program-changing win for the Orange. That's coming up next. Folks, I know it might be a little bit hard to talk about basketball right now, but basketball season is in full swing now. And whether it's the NBA, college, even Syracuse games, no matter who they're playing, they're always typically exciting. And the way I get tickets for games is by using Gametime. Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And my favorite feature is the curated deals. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. In case you guys can't tell, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I was screaming for a lot of this game for good reason. A lot of it was celebration, which was terrific. Let's talk about our signal caller. This might have been the final time that we watched Kyle McCord play in a Syracuse uniform. It might. And man, did he go out on a high note. Oh, he did. 26 of 36, 380, and 3 touchdowns. I think Ohio State wishes they still had this guy. Don't you think? Did you watch that game earlier today, Michigan, Ohio State? I think they wish Kyle McCord was still their guy. And look, Ohio State's going to be in the college football playoff, I think, at 10-2. I don't see how they drop from second in the country to out of the playoff. I guess it could happen, but it's very unlikely. I think they wish they had Kyle McCord right now. Man, he was unbelievable. This game, he had, like I said in the lead up, he had one throw, one poor decision all game long. He had one poor decision and maybe one or two inaccurate throws. But you really have to nitpick. We can go to the poor decision that he made. It was at the end of the first half. Syracuse is down 21-14. They get a stop on defense. And they have the ball and they're looking to double dip. What does double dip mean? It means you score at the end of the half. Then there's the half. And then you score coming out of the next half. And why does this occur? It's because you're getting the ball to start the next half. And so therefore you can double dip. You can score twice before the other team even gets to touch the ball again. So Syracuse is looking to do exactly that. And Kyle McCord throws an outbreaking route. And Mish Powell of Miami reads it really well. He's watching the eyes of Kyle McCord. He jumps the route. He honestly could have taken it back to the house. And man, that would have been a changer. But he drops it. I talked about it in the lead up. You maybe get one chance. That's all you get. He'll give you one. One ball in harm's way. Miami could not take advantage. That was such a critical play. If Mish Powell, even if he doesn't run that back for a touchdown, right? Let's say he catches the ball and he gets tackled, like right away. Well, they're set up still near field goal range. And with the way that Miami was moving on offense, the least that was going to occur, they're going to go up 24-14 at the half. So it's a 2-score game. But no, he drops it. They even could have gone up 28-14, knowing Miami's explosive offense and the fact that the one thing that Syracuse really couldn't stop all game long on defense was the middle of the field with Xavier Restrepo. They couldn't stop him. That was such a critical play that went in Syracuse's favor. He gave you one, and they couldn't take advantage because the rest of the game, absolutely flawless. Absolutely flawless. I have nothing else to say about him. He's the first 4,000-yard passer in Syracuse history. Folks, he might have just put together the greatest single season in Syracuse football history from the quarterback position. I know that in the comment section, you guys might say, well, what about Don McPherson, 1987, right? That team was 11-0-1. Could have won the Heisman that year. Probably should have won the Heisman that year. And I know you have to adjust for the era that you play in. The guy was 4,000 yards, had upper 60s in completion percentage. He finished with 29 touchdowns to 12 interceptions, and 5 of the 12 interceptions came in one game. He led the league in passing yards in the college football regular season. It's not going to hold up because the guys behind him are going to be in the college football playoff. They're going to be playing in conference championship games. They have more games, so they'll catch Kyle McCord. He won't end up leading the nation in passing yards, but he will lead the nation in passing yards per game. What a season. I am a Kyle McCord fan. I was a fan going into the season. I was someone that repeatedly said that I think he was a victim of the circumstances at Ohio State. This is not a shot at Ohio State here, but it's the reality. It tells the whole Kyle McCord story. He's a 5-star recruit at Ohio State. He sits behind multiple NFL guys. The 3 guys that came before Kyle McCord, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. They're all first-round NFL draft picks to varying degrees of success in the NFL, but they were dominant in college football. Those were Heisman Trophy candidates in college football. First-round NFL picks. And Kyle McCord, maybe you can put him in that category honestly now, but heading into this year, he was not in that category. He was not a first-round NFL draft pick, but he was still really good. And he also took a lot of flack for not beating Michigan. CJ Stroud couldn't beat him twice, and Will Howard didn't do it today. He's not the only one. But it's a big deal at Ohio State if you can't beat Michigan. And he threw the game-losing interception in that one. And they were also a victim of the fact that it was a 4-team playoff. And there were 7 teams for 4 spots that year. An unprecedented year. The year before with CJ Stroud, they're in the exact same situation. They finished 11-1. And they made the college football playoff despite losing to Michigan because there weren't as many teams to be qualified for it. But he comes to Syracuse, and I had high hopes for him. I said he would be second team All-ACC. He's probably going to be second team All-ACC in all likelihood. I'd be surprised if he's not. Maybe it will be Kevin Jennings at SMU, but even then, I think that's a stretch. And he puts together a season for the ages. He wasn't perfect all year. He had a stinker against Pitt, but there's really not much to complain about with him. I wouldn't say he carried Syracuse, but he was certainly Syracuse's best player, their most important player. He stayed healthy all season, which is a big deal. And he was the perfect leader for this team. He's someone from Ohio State. He gets it. He gets it. And he was the guy who can find and unlock Syracuse's passing weapons. Trebor Pena with a breakout season with 6 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown only today, but he had a fantastic year. Jackson Meeks, 7 for 110, 2 touchdowns. Every game for Jackson Meeks, like Trebor Pena, feels like a career high for him because he didn't do all that much at Georgia heading into this season. Oronde Gadsden only had 4 catches for 50 yards in this game, but Miami was keying on him the entire game. You can tell how much he opens up the field for the other Syracuse receivers. But they had the perfect field general to get them the ball in Kyle McCord. I also would like to shout out the offensive line for Syracuse football today. They played the best game of their season. The best game they played all season. Miami got some pressure in the beginning of the game to the point where I was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to hold up. I don't. But from the first quarter on, they opened up running lanes, right? LeQuint Allen, I mean, the stats don't show it, but he was getting good chunk plays. He just didn't have the explosive run. His longest run today was 11 yards, but he finished with 22 carries for 82 yards. 3.7 per carry isn't great, but he didn't have the monster 60-yard run that will inflate your yards per carry. So that's actually pretty good. Yassine Willis, he did have the fumble, but he had 3 carries for 20 yards. And I know that he had that fumble, but when he was running, he looked pretty good. And he's a future piece for Syracuse football. He's only a true freshman. And Kyle McCord, I don't think he got sacked all that much. I'm trying to find it right here. It was maybe only a couple of times in this game. But Miami couldn't generate a lot of pressure on him, which is what they needed to do. So you keep Kyle McCord upright. Thank you to the offensive line. You open up running lanes. You're able to run the football at a decent clip. You got explosive weapons, and they exposed the Miami defense, which I thought would play better, but they didn't. And the Orange win this game 42-38. Just an unbelievable way to end the season. The Orange finish 9-3, their best regular season since 2018. But unlike 2018, where it was a great year, it was. I genuinely feel like this is a program-changing win. And that's coming up in the next segment. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Syracuse football heading into this game was an 11.5-point home underdog, and they found a way to win. Their money line was at plus 320. So if you bet Syracuse, if you bet that $5, not only did you get incredible odds on it on their money line, but you also got an additional $150 if you use this deal. if you want to maybe capitalize on Syracuse football in 2025 or maybe bet Syracuse basketball, although I don't know if they're going to pull off many wins like this, just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch. You make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Guys, Fran Brown is a first-year head coach, not just at Syracuse, but ever in his life. He's a first-time head coach. And in his first college football season, he leads the Orange to a 9-3 record. Maybe it'll be a tomorrow or a Monday podcast whenever I decide to upload next, but we'll maybe dive a little bit deeper into Fran Brown. There's plenty of time to dive into the success that he had this season. But this is not an exaggeration when I tell you this. He might have just become the most successful first-year head coach in the history of the program. What do you think of that? This was a program-changing win. Heading into this season, maybe I'm a little bit repeating myself from the beginning of this podcast, and for that, I'm sorry. Honestly, my mind is kind of all over the place after that one. We talked about his recruiting and his transfer portal class. It was kind of turning around, right? But Fran Brown had never coached a down in his life. So my thing was always this. It's cool and all that you can recruit, and definitely that was something at Syracuse that had to be fixed. Their recruiting rankings under Dino Babers were not very good. Dino's a great person. I'm not trying to take a shot at him, but he couldn't really recruit well. And they needed someone who could. And that was Fran Brown, who, heading to Syracuse, was named the #1 recruiter in the nation by 24/7 Sports. He was over at Georgia, and he was a terrific recruiter at Georgia. And he translated it to Syracuse. Did he get all of the 5 stars in the world? No. I mean, he didn't get like all the Georgia athletes and everything like that. But like I said earlier, his recruiting was at a 2-decade level high for Syracuse football. It was starting to become, okay, now they're not bottom of the barrel of the ACC in terms of talent. Maybe they're middle of the pack, which Rome is not built in a day. I'm not expecting Fran Brown to have the #1 recruiting class in the conference in his first year. So already, terrific job. But he hadn't coached it down yet. So it's great that you can recruit, but can you actually coach? Can you build a winning team? Can you bring in all these new guys and have them gel and be a team? And he did. They went 9-3. He did it. That's why this is a program-changing game. Because Fran Brown already has proven he can recruit. And I'm sure, which signing day is coming up pretty soon, I think it's on Wednesday, that they're going to get some guys. Calvin Russell, a 5-star in 2026, a receiver, a monster, who I have a steak dinner bet with Brian Smith over at Locked On Seminoles. He's a college football recruiting expert. Told me there's like no chance that they can get a guy like Calvin Russell, a 5-star player. He was in the building tonight. His top 2 schools were Miami and Syracuse. So of course he's going to show up. You beat Miami, a top 10 team. You eliminate them from the ACC title game. You might have just eliminated them from the college football playoff. More on that in the squad episodes coming up if they deserve a spot in the playoff. But you might have just done that, and your team finished 9-3 in one season. It's a program-changing win. You get my drift now? Just unbelievable what he did. The perception of the program has changed. It has. You don't think of Syracuse football anymore on your schedule and say, that's a circled win. We're going to get our get-right game against Syracuse. Yep, we're going to beat the Orange. Nope, they're not. And think about it this way. We can talk about Kyle because it kind of relates to him. But if you're a quarterback, why wouldn't you want to come to Syracuse? You play in a dome, first of all. That helps. So there's no weather you got to deal with. I hope that Jeff Nixon remains the offensive coordinator, but he might have done such a terrific job this season. He might be a head coach somewhere next year. Or he might be an offensive coordinator at a super upper tier program if there's a job that's open. And more power to him, by the way. We talked about Jeff Nixon, the offensive coordinator, maybe being the head coach of Temple. Now, that was debunked by Fran Brown, but he might be able to aim a lot higher than that. But think about if you're a quarterback. I mean, look at what they just did with Kyle McCord. We look at him a whole lot differently than we did at this time last season. At this time last season, he was a quote-unquote bum. Not anymore. So if you're a quarterback, why wouldn't you want to come here and be developed? Play in a dome. And play with awesome weapons because they're going to get guys. You know they are. We got someone now. We got our guy. Our guy is Fran Brown. And we should rally behind him. He has proven it to me. Which is something that I didn't know if he'd be able to do in a year. I didn't know if he would. You can recruit. That's great. That's awesome. We needed help in that category. Can you coach? Can you manage a clock properly? Was there ever a time this season when Fran Brown did not manage the clock properly? Ever? I'm genuinely asking. If you have an example, leave a comment in the comment section below because I don't know. He was a terrific game manager. He had his players motivated. His teams, they bounced back every time they had adversity. Every time they had a crushing loss. They only had 3 of them this year, which is great. They lost to Stanford this season. They ripped off 4 straight after that. They lost to Boston College. They bounced back. They lose to Pitt. They bounce back. And I know I flipped that order, but you get the idea. And they finish 9-3. Program changing win. Thank you all for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you might want to check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Dono, who hosts Locked On Canes, I'm sure he's not a happy camper right now, so send him some love. In all seriousness, the Hurricanes played a great game, but Syracuse just played even better. But Alex Dono, he hosts Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs. They're going to talk their truth about the ACC. They're going to advocate for the ACC. I still think Miami is a college football playoff team. I don't think there's any shame in losing to Syracuse on the road, who finished 9-3. But they're going to bring you their truth about where your favorite team stands within the conference. You can find Locked On ACC on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, for one final time this regular season, just the regular season, there will still be a bowl game, right? It's going to be a little bit different, though, the bowl game. And, of course, I'm not going away. There's all of basketball season, and there's off-season galore with football. I'm not going away here. Jackson Holzer, which is myself, is here to stay on Locked On Syracuse. But for one final time, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. And if you really liked it, subscribe to the channel. Tell all your friends, all your Syracuse friends, that this is the place you need to be. What a win for the Orange. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And everyone, take care.